Okie dokie, folks. I think we're having a few technical bother. Oh, yeah, we've got the nod. So, talk. If only we had the head of IT here, who'd be able to fix it. You know. No. Oh, well, there we go. Bring on LGR. Oh, yeah, we are on. We are on, and they all heard that. So, very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Corporate and Communities. Today we have one apology, and it's Councillor Wharton, who I think has done well, so please pass on our best and a speedy recovery. Sam, I don't think we've got anyone else.
No, it's fine.
No. Anyone have any interests to declare? Any party whip? No. Fantastic. We have no members of the public, but we are joined by some other councillors. We've got Councillor Hardman here, who it's always a thrill and a pleasure to have you at one of my committees, Adrian. So, we go on to the minutes of the last meeting. Any issues? Anything for anyone? No? Wonderful. So, we're handing over to Jeff now to talk about artificial intelligence. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Today's session is an opportunity to update you on how we're using artificial intelligence and what it means for our services, our staff and our residents. I will just briefly set the scene and then I'll hand over to Jo Hilditch, who joins me today and is our Head of Digital Data and Web, and she'll provide a more detailed overview of the contents of the paper. So, as a council, we're facing growing demand, tighter budgets and increasingly complex services. AI is one of the tools that can help us meet those challenges through enhancing staff productivity, improving decision making and delivering better access and responsiveness for residents. We know that councillors and residents need to trust how we use these technologies, and that's why we're developing clear guidance, mandatory staff training and better ways to explain how AI supports our work. I'd also like to reassure the panel that we're approaching the use of AI responsibly and ethically. Our strategy focuses on having robust controls and a measured approach in place to ensure AI is used fairly, safely and in a transparent way, whilst not stifling innovation. I'm really keen to hear your views on the use of AI within the Council, and I really hope this discussion will help us shape how AI is used to deliver better services for Worcestershire. So I'll hand over to Jo to run through the key highlights of the paper, and then we're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm just going to talk you through some of the current uses of AI within the Council in terms of how we've adopted it and how we manage it. Starting off with Microsoft Copilot Chat, which is the version that we all have included with our Microsoft license. In summary, it's routinely being used across many frontline and support functions, mainly for things like drafting, reports, etc., summarising meetings and handling communications. It's become part of daily work now, and there are around 5,500 chats per day being carried out within that version. We also have what we call the Microsoft full licensed version. That's allocated sparingly at the moment. We've got about 50 licenses across the authority, and that's primarily used for tasks such as formal reporting, analysis. So we ensure that those licenses are only given out, if needed, if the Copilot version that's included in Microsoft can't be used. We've also got a couple of pilots underway within adult social care and safeguarding. So that's using AI in a controlled, safeguarded environment. And also a new contact centre platform is being introduced soon, which is using AI-enabled features like chatbots and call transcription services. The AI use is openly published, so it's within our publication scheme, so that that we're accountable and public can see what we're using it for and when. In terms of governance and assurance, we do have an AI strategy, which runs from 2025 to 2028 with an implementation plan and clear priorities set within it. We've also got an AI governance board, which will oversee the use of AI from an ethics and transparency perspective, protecting us in terms of our data and risk, etc. We had an internal audit that was carried out last year, at the end of last year, which gave us a satisfactory assurance rating, which is really good, and they recognised that we had established processes and we were effectively handling the approved use of AI across the council. We cover key risks such as bias and privacy and copyright issues. They're managed via our policy. Staff are trained to use AI as well, which provides that governance. And we only use approved tools, so tools that IT are aware of and have signed off. Any new tools that people want to introduce are assessed and a business case is raised and goes through the normal IT protocol. In terms of our workforce and their capability, we have mandatory learning for all staff so that they use AI responsibly, and this is supported by further guidance on the use of the approved tools. So the Council has strong foundations for responsible AI adoption with robust governance assurance and workforce capability already established. And we can see that AI is delivering tangible benefits for staff and services. And we continue to scrutinise the controlled expansion. And that is it in summary. Open to questions.
Fantastic. Before I open up to the panel, we are fortunate to have two Cabinet members, and I think, Nick, this is under your world, isn't it? So anything you'd like to add at this point?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I just want to recognise the work that both Jeff and Joe have done. I think it's a significant piece of work. And it's a really strong foundation for where we go next. I think with AI, we probably need to weigh on the side of caution because AI can get things wrong. And when we're in local government, we are dealing with very sensitive information. Also, it can affect people's lives. And I will say this, AI can get things wrong. And we have seen that in the many months before us that it can get things wrong. The one thing I will add is that AI is great, but automation is also a key component of that as well. And we have to take the two hand in hand because they do work in synergy. But again, I think the work, it's a strong foundation and I welcome the report. Thank you.
Fantastic. Councillor Creswell, I don't know, is there anything from you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You know, I just want to echo that. I mean, I use AI in my professional life outside of this chamber, and I found it quite liberating in many respects because it allows me to, I don't know, perhaps summarise documents for me, take notes, etc., etc. I wholeheartedly think that is a game changer in the way that we work. So, you know, I do welcome the report.
Fantastic, thank you. I think in our pre-meet, I think Councillor Dunkley had a great phrase which was co-author or co-pilot and not autopilot. So I might hand over to him to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, what I was saying in the pre-meeting, obviously, it comes, AI is aimed to cost save for the council. But in what way will it do that? Obviously, what we're using at the moment, the co-pilot, is a free service, but to upgrade it to the 365 Copilot, I think comes at a cost. And obviously there's lots of different forms that will come at cost. So would the eventual result be job losses, do we see? Or if it doesn't, then it will be costing us money. And what are the sort of advantages are we going to get out of it, apart from we're making people's jobs easier? And does it mean that Copilot will lead to autopilot?
Joe, I think that, yeah.
So just to give you a bit of background on the cost so far and the potential savings. So I mentioned earlier that in terms of the licensing, we've issued 50 licenses which equates to approximately £13,500. Based on, and this is very rough estimates, we're saying based on 30 minutes saved per meeting in terms of the summarisation and transcription, 30 minutes kind of in terms of report creation, which is very, very low. We know that there's much greater time savings, and approximately 5 minutes saving an email, and an average salary of 34,000 per member of staff. We're estimating about 187,000 savings per annum in terms of the time that can be saved. So whilst it won't necessarily reduce staffing levels straight away, it could potentially provide cost avoidance in terms of if you've got a smaller team perhaps going forward, you might not need to recruit. So as people naturally leave the organisation, you might not need to recruit because AI will give you back the time needed. But yeah, it's all based case by case basis in terms of costs.
Fab, yeah. Nick.
Thank you. Really great question, Mark. Thank you for asking it. I think the other thing we need to bear in mind as well is I use AI in my day job, and the way we interpret it in the private sector is it does quite a lot of the heavy lifting, all that data crunching, which gives you the time to analyse and actually make those really impactful decisions. So the use of AI is not making the decision, it's helping you make an informed decision. Those are the key things. And also with AI, it enables you to spend more time on those areas that make a difference and actually deliver better outcomes for residents, because you could be bogged down in admin all the time. Will you make a really critical decision there and then? Probably not. But if you've got the time and capacity to do it, AI can give you that enability to do that. Thank you.
Mark, did you have any comeback on that one or something?
Not on that particular one, no. Just another thing. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what we're using it for at the moment, but I have heard that do you use it, Nick, for job applications to filter out, use candidates for jobs or not?
I assume you mean to the council rather than Councillor Price himself applying for jobs. I don't think you're out of a job yet.
I wish I could. As far as I'm aware, no.
No, they don't.
No.
It's just that I've heard that if it's used for that, obviously it'll just go through everybody's applications, and if you happen to have lack of experience, then you don't even get through the door, and younger people can send in applications for 200 or 300 jobs, and they get a bit demoralised when they keep getting AI answers. So.
Fab, what I'm going to do, just because Jeff caught my eye first, and then I'll go back to Councillor Price, and then we have Councillor May. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so just to confirm, there isn't any use of AI in job applications at the moment across the council. No use in that regard. The other thing I just wanted to say in relation to the first point is I agree with comments from my colleagues and from Nick, but also just to say that the vast majority of users in the organisation will be able to use the basic version of Microsoft Copilot at no extra cost. It's included within our Microsoft 365 licensing. So we're certainly not looking to dramatically increase costs for the council in the introduction of AI, and it will be, as Joe said, on a case-by-case basis where there is a business case and a defined benefit for allocating a paid licence. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
I think Jeff read my mind, so I'll be quiet.
Fantastic. Councillor May.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this report, Jeff. Very much appreciated, and you too, Joe. Paragraph 18, co-pilot chat, no additional licence. Usage is concentrated within frontline and operational roles. I'd like some examples, please, of what we're actually using this for and how we do the test in terms of the management of the AI intelligence, please.
Hi. So at the moment, we've got access to reports that show us where Copilot is being used across the services. So when we're talking about frontline staff, we're talking about social workers as an example. And some of the use cases that have been mentioned are around transcriptions of internal meetings at the moment only, because we need to look at additional functionality that will allow social frontline staff to capture in-person meetings or hybrid meetings, which we don't quite have yet.
Precisely why I was asking the question. Thank you, Joe, because I was just a little bit concerned with the test and balance and the narrative that's formed around AI at the moment. Actually, is this the interface with Joe Public? And you've just answered it. Thank you very much indeed. In terms of testing our AI and the bar that we set, how do we do that, please?
So when we introduce new AI, so as an example, we put it alongside one of our automation projects so that it checks the information that is being sent, in this instance from a school, before it goes through to a member of staff to deal with, to make sure that the information is being sent, that's the right information is being sent, so it's trying to save time. At no point does that information get blocked, even if there is something wrong with it. There's always a human in the loop, and it's rigorously tested with a number of kind of test documents to make sure that it is accurate. But whenever we introduce that, the member of staff using that system is always checking it as well. So it's kind of working, like we've said. I love the what did you say, co-pilot? Autopilot. It will never go straight through. There will always be a human in the loop. So we do rigorously test. Where we're introducing agents, for example, in HR, to help HR staff access information really quickly and easily across numerous documents. You've got somebody doing the manual check as well as checking the AI to check for accuracy before we even roll that out within a team. So yeah, very rigorous testing.
Thank you, Joe.
Councillor May, you happy?
That's fine, thank you very much.
And, Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff, officers as well, for bringing this this topic forward, this report. Encouraging to hear about the sense check and balance being applied for the outputs, so that we don't end up having a digital rabbit hole that we disappear down. I notice on page 2 the AI training and awareness, paragraphs 9 to 13, relates to staff training. I'm just wondering what sort of training we're looking at for members, so that we're also on the right page, and that it also gives us assurances, gives us reassurances about the amount of thought that's going into this, and the quality that's driving this AI strategy as well. Thank you.
I don't think we have any dedicated training at the moment, but we are working with our internal training team to create even more training. So it's absolutely something that we can pick up.
Yeah, Councillor Price.
Yeah, we can pick that up. And also, I can send you an email with some online resources that I use quite heavily with AI. It's a bit of a side project of mine looking into. I'm quite a bit of a data nerd, so I'll send you some information as well. Thank you.
Fab, I think, was that a hand up for data nerd there, Jeff, or no? Over to you.
Definitely don't put me in that bracket. No, just to add to that, we're working with a couple of Microsoft partners as well that are closely signposting us to some Microsoft training that's readily available as well, which we can also share with members. There's no, obviously restrictions on who can complete that, so we'll take that away as an action and look to provide something. Thank you.
Amazing. Councillor Cotter, are you happy for the time being?
Keen to hear and see more, but yeah, thank you.
Fab, I've got Councillor Bennett next on the list.
I asked this as a bit of a joke, but it's something that I come across in my use of AI. Does it definitely not use American versions of English, which is number one? But also, on a more serious note, in terms of files being degraded or lost, and or the fact that this is a kind of new technology, what are the risks, and have we got any insurance to make sure that, when it comes to some of these very important records, they can't possibly get lost or distorted?
Joe, yeah.
So we use Microsoft Copilot because it's within our own tenant. So nothing you put into it trains the large language model that it uses, and it only surfaces the information that you have access to already, as well as obviously the internet if you give it the right domain. In terms of the American spelling, apologies, I've done it the wrong way round, you can set up within Copilot, it's kind of, I suppose, a bit of a profile about yourself and how you want Copilot to respond to things. So what we'll be recommending, and we're kind of trying to drip feed little hints and tips, is that people set up their profile before they start to use Copilot so that they can actually specify English UK spellings. You can tell it to take out, I think it's called M's, the lines it puts in as well, and any kind of other random reference things that it puts in. So you can actually set that up from the get-go so you don't have to keep changing the documents and things as it creates them.
Fab. Yeah, Jeff, I think, and then Councillor Price.
Yeah, sorry, can I just clarify, when you talked about files being degraded or lost, did you mean taken outside of our control by AI and into the wider public domain, or something else?
Yeah, that's what I meant, but also because it's another more sophisticated version, which could then lead to more, the more sophisticated something is, the more chance that it could go wrong. It's as simple as that, really.
Okay. Yeah, in which case I think Joe answered it. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Price.
Just to reinforce that, Copilot is enforceable by GDPR. So ChatGPT, for example, isn't. It's an American company. So because we use Copilot, GDPR covers us from that perspective.
Fab. Councillor Bennett, did you have a supplementary at all, or are you happy for now?
No, I'm fine. I'll be recorded by AI at any time.
Fantastic. Sorry, Sam, over to you.
Cheers. I've got a few questions, really. Some of them might have sort of been answered already, but why Copilot and not another platform?
Because we already have Copilot as part of our Microsoft license in terms of the Copilot basic version, which the majority of people will be able to use, and they'll do what they need to do with it. So there's no additional cost for the council.
I might already have a car, but I might want another one because it's better. So why not use?
Again, it will be a case-by-case basis. So if people identify, or somebody identifies a new piece of AI technology that offers real value, then we would absolutely assess it. And as long as it meets all of our policies and guidance and, in terms of security, then it's not to say that we wouldn't introduce something additional, but we would absolutely review first, see if it's necessary, if there's an additional spend.
Thank you. What would happen if somebody was using, for instance, ChatGPT for council work, when in fact they're meant to be using Copilot?
Yeah, so firstly, in our policy we state that you're not allowed to use unapproved AI tools. So we do some monitoring in terms of what AI solutions are used across the council, so that we can track that. So we monitor certain domains like ChatGPT as to people signing up to it, and we can track that and then address those on a case-by-case basis. There's more that we could do in that space to prevent people from using unsolicited, unapproved AI tools, but it comes at an expense. So at the moment, we're fairly confident and happy that what we're doing and monitoring is sufficient, but we'll continue to review that as things evolve.
Just going to bring Councillor Price in.
Also, I think, from my understanding, the council also prevents you installing ChatGPT onto your hardware as well. So members would know this as well, because you can't download it from the Microsoft Store.
Yeah, Sam.
Cheers. You've mentioned training in the document, which is obviously really needed. The training there seems to be more on the compliance side of things and data protection. What training is actually being done to ensure people know how to use it properly and not just use it like they would Google?
So Jeff mentioned earlier we've managed to secure Microsoft funding, and through that funding we now have access to a Microsoft training platform, which we will be rolling out to staff. You can set pathways within the platform so that depending on the role you cover off specific training. So we have that. We've also got an assessment that will be going out to all staff so that we can measure confidence and as well as capability, and that again will signpost staff through to the relevant training for them based on the completion of the assessment. And we've also secured Microsoft funding to deliver a couple of workshops for staff, again just teaching them how, like we've said earlier, to set up Copilot from the get-go, and kind of learning how to create good prompts, because it's only as good as what you put into it, in terms of what you get out. So we are rolling out more and more training. There's a lot of training out there, so it's trying to find the right bit of training for the staff and the role.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, it's an evolutionary process. It's a journey that we're going on with the staff across the organisation, and I think one of the other key things is knowledge sharing, isn't it? And that's part of that AI governance board that we're spinning up, and we've got a team site where we can share common prompts and experiences with using Copilot specifically, but also as we potentially look at other solutions that may work into that space. So it's all about knowledge sharing, but fundamentally the Microsoft skilling will underpin it all.
Are we able to move on to Councillor Bales and then we'll come back to you? Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. Alan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. We're delighted to receive that, and a lot of hard work's gone into to AI, which is obviously going to be quite contentious with us as a local authority and opens us up to a lot of risks, I suspect. So we're in your hands, Cabinet members and officers here, to try to protect us. And just on that issue, what about false information coming through, and how can we be protected with that, bearing in mind it's already taken place with West Midlands Police, where false information come in? So what protection have we got with that? And then one for Councillor Price's portfolio holder for efficiency. What do we think the anticipated financial savings will be throughout this year with taking on an AI, because that's the point of doing it? And just two other points, if I may, Chair, while I've got the just in front of me. Just on point 10, page 2, a podcast has been recorded entitled, and it says it's been provided to council staff and stakeholders. I would have thought we were stakeholders, so I've seen nothing on the podcast. So listening to podcasts in the car when I'm coming to these meetings, it might be quite useful to get something on that. And just finally on, and I think it's going on from Councillor May's point about examples, just on point 22, we've got the AI Copilot engine being developed with the adult social care to provide support to the staff. Can I have a bit more detail on that and how that's happened? And again, adult social care is going to be very contentious in information and what we're using it for. So are we protected with that? And just an example of that, if I may, Chair. Thank you.
Fab, thank you. So we'll come to officers first, and then Nick, if that's okay with you. So we've got podcast, adult social care, and there was a third that I'm sure officers will remember.
I'll go first, and then Joe can chip in. So I might not do this in order. So podcast, they're recorded by our learning and development team. So that's an action we can take away and talk to them about whether that's shared wider with members. Certainly it was an internal provision that they've made, but I'm sure it could be shared with the wider group. In terms of the false information, so certainly from a Copilot perspective, as Joe's mentioned before, it's grounded in our Microsoft Office 365 tenant. It can only pull information from a trusted source in that regard. However, the fundamental element, as we've said before already as well, is human in the loop. So the human always has to check the outputs, and that's really what guards against false information or hallucinations, as we call it with AI technology. The anticipated financial savings one, don't have an answer for you on that at the moment. As Joe's alluded to, at the moment, this is very early stages rollout of Microsoft Office 365 Copilot. There are no business cases on the table at the moment for any particular solution that's going to deliver financial savings, but it is producing capacity within teams, and it starts with that. And then when you've got that adoption journey going and it building, that is when we think we will see the business cases coming through. And if I hand over to Jo for the last point for the adult social care, because she's closest to it.
So in terms of the adult social care one, that came off the back of the workshop as a proof of concept. So a member of staff within adult social care has created an AI agent, a Copilot agent, and the Copilot agent is being used by staff to surface information from hundreds of documents and websites that they use. So it's saving them loads of time. Instead of having to trawl and look for that information, they can just chat to the agent in effect, and that information is surfaced to them. So that's what that is. So it's very much an internal tool. It's only surfacing information that they've already got access to.
But yeah, Councillor Price, over to you.
I think when we talk about efficiency, and this is a bugbear of mine, it's not just about saving costs. It's about, looking at time saved, also looking at cost avoidance and service improvement. So when we look at efficiency on those lenses, yes, of course, we look at cost savings and those other three as well. But for me, the core of this is looking at the service improvement, cost avoidance, and also time saved. So those are the other elements that we'll be looking at, and of course we will bring those to the committee and in due course to explain where we've improved those areas. So it's not just about cutting costs.
Councillor Bales, you look like you've got a
Well,
supplement.
surely that goes into a cost-benefit analysis, because you've got all your intangibles which you can measure. But for us to go forward, surely we have to know where that cost-benefit analysis is to make sure that we are making those savings. So just a thought on that, Nick, if I may. But just to come back on, sorry, not come back, it's a further question on the Copilot agent. Is that through a chat box where you type in a question and it comes back with the answer?
It works in exactly the same way. Yeah.
So have we had any feedback whether that is working or not? Because I use it when I'm doing my shopping. No, not really. But you get callbacks and type things in. You could be there forever waiting for an answer to come when the agent's free. And sometimes it says at the end, can you rate that?
I think we're getting terminology muddled here. So agent, as you do your online shop, waiting to be connected is different. An agent here is just the profile of respondent that's instantaneous. So I was showing off my data geekery there. Do either of you want to... no, Fab, has that helped there? So I feel quite proud of myself there. Peter, I have you next on my list.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Are you finding any sort of reluctance from staff members with taking on these AI facilities?
What we found, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to carry out the assessment across the entire workforce, and a really key piece of that is to measure the confidence levels with staff. We've only run a pilot of the assessment so far within IT and digital. So what we've seen so far is, which is understandable given this, the type of people that work there, there's a high level of confidence. When we roll that out across the wider organisation, that might not be the case, but we'll be able to work then more closely with those people once they've been identified. And what we're trying to do is build AI champions within the services, so it's not led from the centre, it's actually going to evolve within the service itself, because as we know from a change management perspective, if you've got somebody sat next to you using a piece of software and they're gaining lots of benefits from using it, it's easier for them to sell that piece of software than it is for IT and digital. So that's what we're trying to do, evolve the AI champions across all of the services. And we've got quite a few of those already. The survey also highlights change agents as well. So again, we can empower those change agents and upskill them so that they can share within their teams.
Peter, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the main point I was really trying to make was that maybe they're worried about their job security and so on, and over the office or departments as a whole, there might be a certain amount of reluctance to sort of take on these new technologies. But I'd rather go on just to another subject if I can, with obviously being told not really to use Copilot as a Google search, which I think can be tempting when people are just asking the questions that they probably would use Google or someone. Are you finding that as an issue, or you just if you want to make a ask Copilot a question, you're quite confident in doing that, than rather than going to Google or any other search engine for that matter?
Yeah, I think we would actually encourage it, to be honest with you. It's a very useful way of surfacing information from the internet, and actually has many advantages over just doing a basic search engine search, because you can expand your questioning after it comes back with the first response, and it takes that into context of what it's responded with, so you actually get a more rounded response rather than just a whole set of results that you've then got to navigate to find the information that you're really looking for. Copilot will just surface that to you, and as I say, keep expanding on it if you want to seek further clarifications or add in other elements to your original question. So we would encourage that as a way of using Copilot.
Just on that one, Councillor Turner, when you do a Google search, there is a thing within Google where companies can pay for their searches to high up the rankings as well. So when you use a platform like Copilot or Perplexity, as an example, that filters all of it out. So as Jeff says, you get that rounded response rather than getting a business's paid response coming through. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, that just goes to show that I need Copilot training, doesn't it, really? But just a final thing with AI generally, the massive capacity really within education. I know that's not really probably for this committee today, but with individual learning and using that AI to prescribe particular teaching methods that suit particular children or adults for that matter, to help them through their learning process. I think that could be a huge opportunity going forward.
Fab, perhaps more of a comment than a question. Yeah, Fab. Before I return, I have a burning question, if I can. I'll phrase it in a delicate way. Obviously, we know that this authority will not be here forever now. We are reaching an end point. Are we moving quick enough, would be my hesitation. Just, we've got other authorities using AI for EH3Ps and seeing record amounts of progression. We obviously have a bit of a tricky point from our external auditors' recommendations. Are we moving at pace quick enough? I hate that phrase, but I do. We've got, 14 months left as an authority. Are we doing enough, or are we just hoping, perhaps, to get to that point?
Yeah, I certainly think that the work we're doing with our Microsoft partners will see an acceleration in the next 12 months in terms of some of that space. We definitely need the directorates and the service areas to be coming forwards with areas where they need support with AI technologies and opportunities to use solutions, a bit like transcribing meetings in social care, adult social care, service user meetings. There's opportunities that we're currently in discussions with service leads about there. We are more than happy to have those conversations with any part of the business, and we continue to promote opportunities that we identify as well through some of the avenues that we attend, like webinars and things like that. So to answer the question, are we moving fast enough? Obviously the world is moving at pace at the moment in terms of our own landscape changing. It's a question of just trying to keep up, really, with what's happening across the wider sector. But I think we're in touch with all the relevant support groups that we can be, and yeah, we'll go as fast as we've got capacity to do so, and that the organisation's able to transform.
Councillor Price.
Thank you. Just to reinforce what Jeff said, we have the wider transformation project as well, which we're working quite closely on, and that brings all the directorates together so we can have those open conversations, because from my perspective I'd rather have one AI system doing one thing than having several different ones working in the background. The other thing that we're looking at as well is we're looking at what other local authorities are doing across the country as well, because if they're using it, I would gladly steal it and use it for ourselves, because if it works there, it can work within Worcestershire with some fine-tuning. I think those are the things that we are working on, and we can always say that we can increase pace, but I think the approach that the guys have taken is quite measured and also protects the organisation as well. And I will be putting pressure on our guys to work faster, so we will get there. But Rome wasn't built in a day, was it? Thank you.
Fab. Councillor Cross, you're next on my list.
Thank you, Chair. I think at this stage we ought to raise the concerns expressed about the environmental cost of AI, as my colleague mentioned in our pre-meeting. So, yes, energy usage, water usage. We have to be mindful of our carbon dioxide emissions. And so, presumably, within our whole spectrum of training, etc., we have... Can you give us reassurance that avoidance of duplicated requests or other such unnecessary sort of wasteful usage? I've got one other question, but if we take this as the first one, if that's okay.
I think Councillor Cresswell caught my eye to respond to that initially, and then... Oh, he's nominated you, Joe, I'm afraid.
Okay, so we've actually we're about to this week introduce a new impact assessment system, which absolutely takes into consideration ethical, environmental, from data perspective, the use of AI, because it does consume a lot of energy, particularly when you're chatting with it. So any new business case that requires the use of AI will absolutely require a new IIA to be completed, and all of those things would be considered.
Councillor Cresswell, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, with regards to the energy sector, the proliferation of data centres is huge in Europe at the moment. Let's not underestimate exactly what's going to happen there. They're springing up everywhere. And unfortunately, whichever way you look at it, as we move forwards, that need for ever more energy to power these places will happen. But I am convinced, having used IA, it is the right way to go, because there is offsets to that. I mean, I haven't got those offsets here now for the council. But as one industry comes forwards on there'll be other industries that decline. So you've got that, and if you just bear in mind, I mean, I did some basic searching, and it was like the global footprint for carbon is going to these centres are going to be like up to 3% of global emissions. They're coming everywhere, and we have to be prepared to embrace that. But at the same time, tailor our use to make certain that we're as energy efficient as we possibly can be.
I feel as though that figure may have alarmed councillors there, but Councillor Cross, what's the...
Thank you. As a quick comeback, I mean, obviously, if one of the issues is that these plants need cooling, and in winter months, districts and residents need heating. An element of district heating, there's a synergy to be found there that, as perhaps our planning authorities, etc. This is something that we can all push, that needs to be looked forward. So that's really more of a comment. The question here is next. The second question is, I'm hearing a lot of mention from one major IT provider, and I'm just wondering, how do we end up? How do we avoid ending up becoming dependent upon one huge corporation and potentially being held to ransom in future under a monopoly supply scenario? Thank you.
I'd be inclined to suggest that's more of a political question, perhaps, with the ransom, rather than to colleagues who perhaps have a direction from above. So, Nick, perhaps one from you?
I think it's an interesting question, but I think just to reinforce the points that the colleagues down to my left have said earlier, I think using Microsoft, we're protected by GDPR, which is the most important factor when we're dealing with sensitive information. You've got quite a few companies that are American-based, ChatGPT being one of them, that are not under the purview of GDPR. You've got Chinese companies, again, who are not under the purview of GDPR. I think with Microsoft, it offers the best solution that we have here today. And if you have an alternative, I'll be all ears. But if it doesn't hit those metrics, then we won't use it. Thank you.
Thank you. I was in no way having a dig, but I'm just aware that there's a risk that we need to be aware of, and it would be great to hear the officers' thoughts as well, just about how this might be addressed. I wouldn't necessarily put it as a political only question.
I think there's a risk with anything that we do when it involves AI, but I think the reassuring thing that we've heard today, there is controls in place with Jeff and his team to make sure that we are protected as much as we can be. But I'll let Jeff pick up on the rest.
Thank you. Yeah, I think from an AI perspective, I think it is a fair challenge from an AI point of view. I mean, as an organisation, we are a Microsoft organisation, and when we're very unlikely to ever move away from being a Microsoft organisation because the sheer cost of doing so would be phenomenally prohibitive. But from an AI point of view, and to some extent we are doing this, we are looking at other providers in the market. It's not just a one-trick pony solution for us. We have AI capabilities through our NetCall provision, which is our contact centre solution. We're looking at an alternative supplier potentially for the adult social care transcript solution, although that could end up being a Microsoft one. Just from a cost benefit perspective, it's more cost effective to do it through the Microsoft solution. But yeah, we continue to look at the market and use the right solution in the right case, depending on what the business needs.
Are you happy, Councillor Koch? Yeah.
Thank you.
Basto, I've got you next.
Thanks. What are we doing to implement AI into other sectors like children's services, adult social care? It could be used there. And one thing that jumps out is fraud detection. It could be used in that application.
So again, it's business case basis. So when the service come to us with a suggestion of where it can be used, we assess it and implement. We are looking at identifying use cases. Specifically, I know, for example, Leicestershire are using Microsoft Copilot to assist with EHCPs. Through the workshops that we're running, we're identifying more use cases. So it's just, again, getting in touch with the services to see where it can be most beneficial.
Just to add to that, so what we're also seeing is a lot of proprietary systems that we've already got. The suppliers are introducing AI capabilities into them, so I haven't had any direct conversations about this one yet, but the Tech One finance system potentially has capabilities to use AI to do some fraud detection. We're seeing the Liquid Logic adult social care, children's social care platform. They're bringing forward some AI capabilities, but what's interesting is 9 times out of 10, it's additional cost. So as Joe sort of alluded to, every single one has to have that business case backing it up that's going to drive some element, ideally, of efficiencies, whatever that might look like. Given our current financial climate, you know, just adding additional costs is just very unlikely at this stage. But not to say that wouldn't happen. Every case is unique and obviously needs to be assessed. But just to manage expectations, that's what we're seeing in the market, is people bringing it through into existing systems but charging for it generally in addition.
I think Councillor Price just wants to jump in.
Thank you. It was just an interesting one that came to my head because I had a conversation with Lisa McNally the other week, and it takes me back to my HOST days with Councillor May. We can actually use AI with a lot of prevention within health, because we get loads and loads of data. So let's put it together in a targeted way to look at prevention. So those are one of the projects I'm going to kickstart in the next few weeks, because I think looking at efficiencies within health and adult social care is quite key. The more people we keep out of the system of prevention, the better the outcomes are for us all. So that's the only thing I'll add at this stage. Thank you.
Sam, did you have any more questions? I think on that note as well, we do have to acknowledge we do a lot more than just Copilot, don't we? I mean, I've followed your link in the report, and we talk about the adult health and social care and people who are falling and when things are picked up in the home. We do a wide range, actually. I think that has to be acknowledged and commended. Councillor Bennett and then Councillor May.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that if they ever see this or anything ever gets called HAL, then please never have anything to do with it. Because I studied 2001: A Space Odyssey as part of my drama degree with Stanley Kubrick's daughter, and believe me, it terrified me what can go wrong.
I think we've had a flurry into your film choices there, Councillor Bennett. Always welcome. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's a good segue to what Councillor Price said. It's about the preventative agenda, but it's also the safeguarding. You know, adult social care, the front door, putting AI into that area, I think is the way to go. But where's the check and balance in terms of safeguarding, please, Joe?
Again, it goes back to human in the loop. There will never be a case in adult social care or children's social care where a document is created without having the human review, and that's very much clearly stated in all of the policies and guidance that we give to staff. They've got to check it to make sure that it is an accurate reflection of the assessment of the child or adult.
Thank you. Can I just come back on one point? So this co-pilot agent, are the triggers for it to actually stop the automation and move towards a human being to say we need to contact this individual to address this matter, please?
So the co-pilot agent that I mentioned earlier, that's just literally surfacing information from existing documents and policies and guidance that internally that the social care staff already need to access. It's not actually... are you talking about the transcription?
Yeah,
sorry.
so it's got the 20 calls a day it's currently taking. My concerns are somebody rings up with a safeguarding issue. How do we take it out of one system and implement it into the safeguarding system, please?
Sorry, so that's the review, that's the human in the loop. So again, that's why in terms of the liquid logic solution, we're reviewing options and not necessarily going with liquid logic, because from that perspective, the social worker needs to copy it from the document that's been created and put it into the system, because again, it just allows for that kind of second review before it goes into the system to make sure that it is, again, an accurate reflection. It's not a click a button and it's through.
So if it's on, sorry, Chairman, through you, if somebody's on the automated system and something comes forward and one of these 20 calls a day and it is a severe safeguarding issue, how does that practically get addressed? Please, Jeff's going to answer this.
I might, although I kind of just missed what you were saying as I was in discussion with Joe. Sorry, Councillor May. But hopefully this will help clarify. So just to put this into context what it actually is, because there might be some misunderstanding. So this particular agent is used only by internal staff who are taking calls on the safeguarding line. So it's not the public interacting with this agent, it is staff. And what it is doing is it is surfacing information to them that they would have typically had to go and look up or go and ask a colleague for. So instead of that, they put the information into this agent and it surfaces that information for them, which is a much more efficient way of then steering that safeguarding call through to completion. So that's what this particular one is doing. Just wanted to put that in context. It's not the public-facing chatbot we have on the website. It's an entirely separate thing from that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Fab. Councillor May, are you happy with that line? Yeah. Councillor Turner, I've got you.
Yeah, I'm a great advocate of AI. Not putting it down in any way, but as we know, with every positive there tends to be a negative, and I know from various other professions and so on, they know that various letters or emails have been sent with using AI. Have you found at all some of these responses that you've been getting by AI, they've been helped from various residents or organisations, they've been using AI and they're challenging your decisions that you've been making because they've got full access to all the information that we have access to?
Yes, indeed. So the complaints team for the council sits under my responsibility, and we have seen an increase in the number of complex complaints we're receiving, which appear to have been drafted using AI assistance. And I think we talked about this a little bit when we came to scrutiny with the complaints report, that we are seeing a world, and this is true in sort of school appeals and things like that as well. We're seeing a world where effectively you're kind of getting into a situation where you've got two AI agents basically responding back to each other, because we're using potentially AI to help draft our response because the complaint or the appeal is so complex in the first case. So then that goes back to the customer, the complainant, and then the cycle continues to go. So that's one to watch, I think, really, and just see how we continue to manage that as an organisation. But I think it's a risk for organisations like ours and others similarly. That's just going to proliferate as the general population increases its use of AI and its awareness of AI.
Are you happy, Councillor? I think all of us have seen recently letters going around that are AI generated that sometimes don't help our organisations. I think we have to be aware of that and how we may use £70,000, for example. Any other committee members before? Maybe Councillor Hardman, is there anything you've listened intently, as you always do? Is there anything you want to ask?
Well, yes, Chairman. I mean, I'm slightly disappointed because I do understand there are two differing views about artificial intelligence. I mean, one, it is the greatest productivity, jump that we are ever likely to see. Or it is going to be an enormous waste of money. My disappointment and my challenge, and I think that's what I'm here to do, is to challenge, would be at the moment we're basically using it as, I would suggest, a sort of data processing tool, which we have to have reassurance, We're finding 20 reasons as to why we don't embrace this and get on with it. I do worry terribly that the IT people, I understand how difficult it is for them to lead this, and that's where the cabinet member should be coming in, because in my view this is going to be a transformational change in the way that we work, and I'm not convinced that asking the directors to come up with AI projects is going to be the way that there is progress made. Now, the cabinet member did make a quick reference to PricewaterhouseCoopers, presumably who are coming in, and this is going to be part of the transformational project. Because it needs strategic grip at the centre, and the cabinet member, I would suggest, to lead it across all of the directorates. I mean, I'm bothered that we're finding 20 reasons as to why we don't do something, and we seem to be just using it. I mean, my challenge to you would be not in the way that I see private sector using it, where, I look at some of the consultancy firms, they've stopped recruiting undergraduates because they don't see the need for them. Certainly, I know of a FTSE 100 company who are probably going to halve the size of their accountancy team and probably reduce by 2/3 their legal team. These are big changes. But here, at the moment, I don't see sort of enthusiasm. I don't see any flash to bang, and I don't see a great step forward being embraced. And my final point, Chairman, because I've gone on too long really, is yet again we seem to be a bit obsessed with it has to be invented in Worcestershire. I mean, lots of people, lots of other councils are already doing things, but I don't think we're bringing in the best of the public sector experience, because I do believe this does have the capability to absolutely transform this council. But I'm not picking that up. I'm picking up caution. Staff need to follow the copyright guidance, because otherwise we're going to be very cross.
So, are we cautious and not enthusiastic? I think, Nick, if we go to you, and then perhaps to officers?
I'm extremely enthusiastic, Councillor Hardman. I think, you know, the development of technology will have a massive impact on this council. And I think when we link it to our transformation project, the realities are boundless. We can really change the way this council operates. You know, the way I view this council at the moment and historically, it operates in silos. And for it to move forward in a progressive manner, we need to really change that model, and bringing in technologies such as AI really does that. But we have to be cautious in the way that we're doing it, because if we get it wrong, it's disastrous and it will affect people on the end interface of this. So we have to be really careful. We're not going to jump into the unknown. We're going to work constructively and plan this out properly. Like I said, if we get it wrong, it's disastrous. So we have the obligation, the opportunity to get this right. That's all I'll say at this stage.
I suppose another thread of Councillor Hardman's queries there were about collaborative nature. Jeff, are we working with our partners on our doorstep, or are we in that silo again, perhaps?
Yeah, I'll come to that. So certainly in terms of any technology, we have to put the guardrails around it, and I think AI particularly needs a cautious approach. But as I said in my opening statement, not to stifle innovation. And yes, I would say, we are working closely with other county councils and our neighbours to see how they are using similar technologies. Personally, I wouldn't say we were particularly behind the curve in this particular space. I'm not aware of any particular authority that is miles ahead of us. And in fact, what we're looking to achieve with our customer contact centre chatbot and telephony automated AI-driven IVRs in the coming months this year is actually quite forward thinking and more innovative than some other authorities that we've actually seen. It's taking time to build and develop, because naturally something that's on that scale will. But yeah, we are always open-eared and open-eyed as to what other authorities are doing and willing to learn from what they're doing and not reinventing the wheel, as Councillor Hardman says.
Councillor Hardman, did you have any follow-up, or are you content?
If you look at one of our close neighbours who is transforming their commissioning process through the use of AI. I mean, I don't detect any of that going on in either adults or children's. But, this isn't really my field, to be honest. I mean, I'm not the strongest advocate of it, because I do have a feeling a lot of these American tech bros are about to burn through squillions of quid to not much aim. But I do think that there is something in this, and I'm not convinced that we've got hold of it. And I was hoping this might be a slightly more encouraging debate, because all I hear is caution, and it'll be a disaster if we get it wrong. Well, I mean, I would point out disasters happen in this council using the old systems. So, I mean, let's not be frightened of risk.
I think a phrase I never thought I'd hear, certainly from yourself, Councillor Hardman, is American tech bro. So we may not have one of those here, but we do have Councillor Price, perhaps the closest to a tech bro on the administration. Where I suppose we haven't got to is, where's your vision for, where would you love to see, if there were no barriers and we were confident in safety, where would you like us to be in 6 months' time with AI?
That's a really great question. I think where there's multiple layers to this. Part of it comes to educating our workforce, because that is our strongest asset. So if we get them using it a bit more and using it openly within their roles, you'll see the effect from day one. They'll be able to spend more time in those key critical areas that they need to spend more time in. I think 6 months is probably a bit too short of a time frame. I think we probably need to look at a 3-year strategic plan for AI from my perspective, because if you look at the transformation of the services that we need to undertake, you can't do that in 6 months with AI. It's going to take slightly longer. But I'll be more than happy to come back at your next meeting to start outlining those timelines for you in more detail.
And then I suppose a cheeky one, if I may. Is there a direction or an area of the council that we really want to prioritise in this transformational period? Is it the adult social care? Is it children? Because I was at Children and Families last week, and EHCPs is a big area that I think we've perhaps lost grip off a little bit. Are we perhaps proactively approaching them and saying, right, now's the time we need to have a very frank AI conversation? Maybe Jeff was nodding, so I'm hoping that means yes, but...
I mean, certainly from my perspective, no issue with that. And as I alluded to before, we're happy to support services in their development of use of AI, and we see ourselves as sort of the strategic enabler, if you like. We need those services to want to change. Inevitably, with technology, that it's people, processes, and technology that need to change. It's not just the technology. You can't just put the technology and expect it to fix everything. It doesn't work. So the people and processes bit have to come at the same time. And in fact, arguably lead it. So that's what we need as a council, and then we will, support them to get the technology in place.
Yeah, Councillor Price.
And as part of my work, so my role is quite unique in the way a CMR works, because I work across all portfolios, and I work really closely with each CMR. And I think from a prioritisation perspective, it's quite clear. Adult social care, children's, and also highways, home to school transport, because we can use AI analytics to look at how we effectively plan those routes for home to school transport to reduce the cost burden on this council. I took a look at the spend on home to school transport the other week, and it's astronomical. And any improvements that we can do there will have a tangible impact on this council. So those are my clear focus areas with the CMRs. And as that work develops, then I'm more than happy to bring it to scrutiny. Thank you.
Fab, I'm just looking over to the committee if there's any more questions. No, I think an action then, or a recommendation, will be to bring that back in. I'll be cheeky and say 6 months. You may want a bit longer, but...
we could do regular check-ins if you want, Chair. I'm happy with that.
I think a regular update would be very helpful for this committee, especially when we enter LGR and know that we are in a bit of a challenging situation. So I think that's it on that one. I don't know if the two of you are staying. I know certainly Councillor Cresswell will no doubt be staying for the next item, which is like in year, but I don't know, Councillor Price, you're happy to stay. Fantastic. So we will move on, but we will thank Jeff and Joe for their contribution today. It's been really, really helpful. And then I'm going to be that person and ask if our next speakers perhaps could move up the line just so we're in peripheral, so that's okay. Fantastic. We're just moving over. Fantastic. So we come on to our performance monitoring, and as ever, we are popping over to Dave to give us a whistle-stop tour. I know the committee have quite a few questions on various ones. So if I hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do most to pick up queries on that, and just say that I think Hannah Needham Hannah Perrott would normally be here, but she's at the landlord board, I think corporate landlord board at the moment, so we're sort of spreading a bit thin. But in terms of the performance information, the report that starts on page 11 of the printed pack, apologies to those councillors who've already heard this, possibly as many as twice at the other panels I go to. But we've got the Power BI version of the report as well, which provides a lot more interactive capabilities, and that's available on the Our Performance page of the County Council's website. And along with that, there are the reports for 3 of the other panels for adult care and well-being, for economy, and also for environment, and also audit and governance, performance and risk reports. So they're available to all residents and to all members at all times. So again, it gives another way of interrogating the data. All of the information in the performance report is as at the end of Q3 of the financial year, so it gives a picture at the end of December. The information with regards to coroners, picking up just the main headline there, because of the statutory responsibility we have in terms of the reporting of deaths within 5 days, or the registration of deaths within 5 days. There's the graph that's on page 14. There's a little dip, Chair, in there. The performance generally, though, is excellent. The dip in October, where it went down to terrible, really, 91.8%, given some of the levels we'd attained before. That was purely to do with movement for a new management information system, which is now fully up and running. And what that meant was there was a slight pause just for a couple of days in the registration of deaths, and then it was full steam ahead. So there was a slight drop there. And the drop in December is reflected across the country. I think we've mentioned before, but the way that the General Register Office actually oversees this particular indicator, they don't make any allowances for scheduled closures for bank holidays. So you're always going to get a slippage there, and that was the case. I think our 88% that month was in line with the All England average, the West Midlands, sorry, All England percentage, but the West Midlands percentage was slightly higher. And what we've seen since then is a return to the levels closer to the 95% target, which is always above, our performance is always above the regional level and also the All England level. So that's on that point. In terms of on the same page, there's quite a bit of information that's been provided around increasing staff engagement. It's come through, and on that, Chair, there's a little update. All staff were sent an email last week. It came out through the Chief Exec, and that was just to say, really, that we've got it mentions in the text that there are going to be a series of short pulse surveys of staff, and it'll focus on one particular subject topic. The current one at the moment is to do with LGR and just about how well informed staff feel they are about that. Very short surveys, 5 questions, chance to say whether or not people want to be a bit more involved in the processes for any of the subjects. And there'll be more of those through the summer to keep people engaged and just to see where there are weaknesses around any of the sort of communication strategies with staff. There'll still be the larger staff survey as well in the summer, and I think the aim is that the results of that will be shared much more quickly. It'll be before the end of the summer, not long after the actual closure of the survey itself, and then the comms can start to work with an HR with directors, with directorates generally, to come up with different plans that might be specific to what's been highlighted by staff in those specific directorates. So can tailor it to suit each directorate. In terms of the other elements, say around the human resources, I might have to plead an amendment on that one. Chair the Fifth Amendment with any questions on that, and possibly in the future come back. But there's, in terms of the usual seasonal variations that we would see, that they're there, in terms of obviously the way sickness alters in the both short term and long term in the winter months. But hopefully the information from HR there is informative, but happy to try and answer any questions or to take those away as and when they arise. On the communities side, where the information that starts with that with libraries, and that's begins on page 19. We always say that libraries are much more than visits and issues. There's so much more that they do, of course. But the two sort of bellwether, use an Americanism, amber for the visits and green for the issues. I thought that our visits figure for the financial year would be slightly above last year. Last year was about 1,795,000 visits. I think we'll be slightly below. It'll be about, still very good, it'll be about 1,780,000. It only can be a tiny bit down. One of the factors with that is, for example, you've got Evesham. Evesham Library was reopened today after a couple of weeks closed, where it had refurbishment, essential building maintenance work. So there you've got a library that, even if it's closed just for a relatively short time, Evesham operates, it's one of the 11 libraries that operates Libraries Unlocked, so that's 12 hours of opening a day. On Mondays, I think Evesham, its Libraries Unlocked from 8 till 9:30. Then it's open to with staff present until about 5, and then 5 till 8, then libraries on locked hours again. So we've lost a little bit of time there, but the issues figure will definitely end the financial year higher than last year. The figure last year, about 2,120,000, will be much closer to 2,160,000. That's partly built on continue very strong e-borrowing, e-magazines, audiobooks and e-books, and also e-newspapers. And also, I think it's fair to say as well, the stock management, the rotation of stock that we've got at several of the libraries is a major, not pilot project, because stock rotation has always gone on, but a new way of approaching it and being able to monitor the impact and the effectiveness of stock moving from one library to another in the north of the county. And we can do that. I've been asked for reports that will show how well the issues are going there, if it is proving worthwhile to do. The initial figures are looking very good. So it's making sure that the supply of books in libraries is kept fresh. And also we can monitor the issues figures for new items. And the proof of the pudding is obviously in the tasting or the borrowing of the books. And what we can do there is go back then to suppliers who are providing the books, Peters for example, and if they've suggested a particular set of books, whether it be authors or a genre or a particular kind of book, then we could go back to them and say they are issuing very well or they're not, and we can sort of challenge them on that as part of the contract for the supplying of new stock. So there's plenty of review of the stock, and I think it's reflected in the issues figures. But yep, if you were to challenge me and say, but if you took out the e-book issues and e-audiobook and e-newspapers and e-magazines, yeah, we would be looking at a drop compared with the years, particularly pre-COVID, where obviously the offer from libraries was very different, less of a digital one, more of a physical book offer. And Chair, just it's still on the performance side, but related to the main subject of of this meeting, the library strategy that's currently going through the review process, and Carol Brown, I think, drafting it, or more than drafted now. But part of the information that we did there was to use the results of the customer voice survey that was done earlier this year. There were about 3,000 responses to that. I did a bit of number crunching, but then what we were able to do was look at the all-important comments from people, what they really valued about their libraries, not just the numbers and the stats. And that was using Copilot. It went through all of the comments, and it was able to come back and flag up particular themes, what people thought were the most important. It ranked them. And using Joe's phrase about the human in the loop, what we were able to do then was to think, well, the subjects, the themes that it's actually flagged up as being important are sort of the ones that we already knew. So your challenge might be, well, why use it if it's telling you what you already knew? But then it gave us a lot more detail about the levels that people found certain things about the social spaces that libraries offer, or the importance of physical books as opposed to digital. It gave us a key information on that front, so that's how we were able to use it in that sense. So it was very useful. Yes, it was speedy as well, so it helped Carol on the way with a major piece of work. With regards to the other elements with communities, just a whiz through in terms of the information around, we've got the County Museum, the visits figure there. Again, like libraries, it will be slightly down on last year. 21,069 was the visits total, I think, in 24/5. Be about 20,000 this year. But again, a healthy uptake from schools in terms of outreach activities to schools, and also visits from children, either in family groups or organised school visits. It's about 20% at least of the visits to the County Museum are by children in all groups. And that's increased slightly in it, but it's remained fairly constant over the years. And again, the County Museum, as always, was after the end of Q3, it closes for a month in January, as does the Commandery, which obviously is a City Council museum. And it gives them a chance to freshen things up, check the buildings, and complete the planning for their events programme for the coming year, and as well as still receiving school visits and undertaking outreach activities in schools, which is an income generator. And then just the last couple of things really was around the countryside site standards of the there's a graph there. It's on page 26, and that is to do with their inspectors going around and assessing how well they think the sites meet all of the safety requirements, or how good signage is everything in a good state of repair, are there any issues with play equipment, and so on. And a good increase there, the 95%, was the percentage of site standards that were achieved in quarter 3. The second best ever. The best was the same quarter 2 years previously. And it's a good improvement on previous months where there were issues around fly tipping at one of the sites. Everything's been addressed in that regard, but also it meant that both the reactive and planned programmes of work were able to be undertaken in that quarter 3. So that really explains the figure there. And then finally, with bikeability, not going into all the detail around the various levels, but those areas there, Chair, it was to try to provide a little bit of context, and it was simply that councillors may have seen at the start of the year, I think it was Midlands Today did a feature on bikeability in Stoke-on-Trent, and one of the things they were flagging up was about the difficulty, particularly across the West Midlands region, of being able to get schools to sign up for a variety of reasons, resources and money and so on. There's a little bit of comparative data that's been provided, and the West Midlands generally, it is lower. The average, the percentage nationally of children who are eligible to undertake training, but who take it up, is 54%. In the West Midlands, there are 11 councils of all types that are below that 54%. Worcestershire is one of those at 49%, Warwickshire 50%, Telford and Wrekin 51%, Herefordshire 71%. It's all different challenges, of course. We can get the funding, provide the opportunities for schools, but it's whether they have the scope themselves to take it up. I think the figures for this year, the level 2 bikeability, which gives children on-road experience and activities, that will be a little bit down on last year. But all the other levels of bikeability, balance training and some of the other basic levels, that'll be about the same. There won't be too much change there. Almost identical figure, I think we're on course for.
Fantastic. Thank you, as ever, Dave. Before I hand over to the committee, I'm going over to Councillor Cresswell, just if there's anything from a Cabinet member point of view about the monitoring, or if you're happy.
The only one point I wanted to pick up there was on the countryside standards achieved. I've got a Hartlebury Common which sits in my portfolio and sits in my town, and the standard of that is very much on my radar at the moment because of issues that Dave just talked about there about fly tipping. So to enable us to move forwards on that, that is a key thing that I must address, and myself and the County Council are working towards that.
Fantastic, thank you for that. So I'll open up to the committee. I think Councillor Cross, you are first on my list.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for this update. Just thinking about these staff surveys. You mentioned Pulse, so I think that's the first time using Pulse surveys. Is that right now? Just is this an area where we're looking to use AI, perhaps for more personalised or conversation style surveys, or chatbot style, or maybe even creating sort of instant feedback for respondents, saying thank you for your responses. Many of your colleagues are also saying that X, Y, Z is a particular problem, so we will be getting onto that as soon as possible, just to help sort of give that sort of feedback, because feedback drives engagement. So a couple of other points as well. Do you want me to put them all into one, or?
I think, Dave, any view on the first point, and then we'll come back to you, Councillor Cross.
I assume that is actually right with the Pulse survey, because you say it gives a much quicker means of analysing the trends. It gives the ability as well to actually identify not just the directorate that you're in. If you wanted to provide more information, there is a free text box that could. It would be anonymised, but I think the focus would always be probably on the directorate by directorate level of information, but tailoring, as you say, then plans and saying that other people in the directorate have had, the same sort of concerns or have flagged up different concerns. And you're right in terms of the timings of it, making it more reactive, so it is to have much shorter surveys with the use of technology to be able to process the results more quickly. And as I think it is almost not necessarily going to be a pulse survey a month, but there will be more frequent ones. So again, you can start to keep it in tune with what are the particular key themes of there. I'm not privy to what the future themes would be, but there might even be one around the use of AI and to gauge more feedback from staff on that. But that's why I think there's this move towards the pulse survey principle.
Fab, Councillor Cross.
Thank you. The second point of 3 was relating to the sickness rates, the musculoskeletal taking over the, good to hear that stress is, well, what I don't know is, has stress reduced and MSK risen, or is it just that, stress has dropped, therefore leaving MSK fairly constant, but therefore in the lead? So it would be nice to understand the problem a little better. I mean, or to have confidence that the team are absolutely eyes on this, and hopefully we'll start to see some long-term sickness rates decrease. Thank you.
The individual stats, I'm sure you can get them by the reason. I'm Councillor, I haven't got the information to hand or privy to that, but certainly something we could probably pick up with HR on that and get the correct information broken down by, because you say it's a valid point to say that it's good that perhaps one particular area, one particular reason is no longer number one, but is it actually because the other one has taken over and it's skyrocketed? So fair point.
Thank you. Yeah. Look, so leave that with you, but look forward to seeing the pudding. Rather, don't need to be involved in making it. Sorry, bad analogies there. The last one was about bikeability. The level 2 in particular is concerning, and just want sort of, yes, I know that schools are under pressure, and anything that's not on their curriculum gets hived off or has to give way. But from our position as a local authority, active travel is absolutely our ball game and our remit and our goal, and also our government's goal. And so where the barriers are to this, what the factors are that are preventing people from cycling. So again, I would really encourage some kind of wider poll of pupils, parents. Is it physical infrastructure, or is it fears and concerns that are actually providing the barrier? What are the barriers to active travel? Is it a lack of training? Is it our infrastructure, or is it just sort of sentiments? Is it driver attitudes? So that cyclists then feel unsafe. And I certainly hear a lot of feedback about people being concerned that saying, I don't like cycling on this particular road because it's a complete nightmare. And I must admit, I agree. It's at least every week that you get close past on Tollardine Road in Worcester, for example. And it's not necessarily the first car that's passing, but the second or third that's just trying to squeeze in. And that's where they're well within the 1.5 meters thing. And, I did 80,000 miles on motorbikes. I did a lot of training and trained to use all the senses. And even so, there are still times when the hairs are up at the back of your neck because someone's done something that really was untoward and unexpected. Perhaps not entirely unexpected, but certainly should not have happened. So we've got a whole holistic problem, a multifaceted problem, and we have a duty and a need. So it'd be great to hear what more can we do than just bikeability, and this spans across so many of our local authority levels.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I probably think that's more of a Councillor Cresswell question, maybe, because I don't think Dave can necessarily comment on the community day-to-day strategy. Am I right in?
Chair, the only thing interesting as well about any barriers is that there is a report that's produced annually by Bikeability. It's on a nationwide scale, so may not apply to local factors. But some of the barriers that they identify often are to do with, could there be more sessions put on that cover families, so aren't necessarily school-orientated, or that families can go along. And of course the County Council does run programmes of those, and they're usually advertised on usually around in the summer holiday period. So those are undertaken. And I think some of the other barriers in the past have, I take it, Councillor's point, that a lot of it is to do with actual the people's experience on the roads. But another factor as well that Bikeability themselves have highlighted is that when they talk about eligible pupils, eligible children, it's actually owning a bicycle first. Is one of the factors there, the children having to own a bicycle first to be able to take part, and of course the certain age groups that it's entered, that it's aimed at as well. But certainly that's a different sort of barrier potentially to what Councillor Cross was highlighting.
Councillor Criswell, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm going to go straight off the bat here. I'm all for people biking to and from school. I really am. You know, it's not only it's good for you, it's good for the environment, but I just look at my own experience now, right? I look at my own experience. Have I missed something now? Have I? My own experience, the amount of people that I talk to about traffic round schools, and I'll be very surprised whether any councillor in this room has not had. Now, it's very, you know, when I do speak to people, I ask them what they was doing. That's the first question I ask, and they say, well, I was dropping my kids off at school. And it's very difficult to moan about the traffic when you are the traffic, right? And that is a fact. Now, what I'm thinking here, and this is something that I discussed with parents, is we got between the, I don't know, 8:30 and 9 o'clock, we get a massive glut of cars, and again at the end of the day at 3 till 3:30, whether there's a position where we stagger times so that there's less people out there, and that would perhaps give people more incentive to get on a push bike and go home because they've got less chance of being knocked off. And it's the fear, I suspect, for parents of their children being on a push bike going home from school that's really stopping. And especially, I mean, if you live in a rural area, you're probably very slightly better off, but if you live in Starbuck, Kidderminster, no, someone's shaking their head at me, probably not. You know, it can be quite scary. So that, I suspect that is one of the biggest barriers that we've got.
Fantastic. Councillor Cross, does that help you?
This is all but the start of a dialogue that needs to continue, and happy to do so offline, and for this to be a regular topic that actually we have a deep dive into. So thank you very much. But also the public engagement, so public surveys, that would be really handy. So perhaps that could be for our officers. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, as well, I think we had this conversation in the pre-meet, but perhaps something for you to take back, Councillor Criswell, is all of us are facing unprecedented housing building in our divisions. I mean, my division, I've had 1,000 houses since May, which is wonderful. But obviously you need an infrastructure. All these developers are saying you can get to from A to B in however many metres, but we need to make sure that there's an active travel route. So maybe a collaborative work, maybe with highways, to work out before we're not commenting on planning application. Maybe we need to, you know, let people know that we don't necessarily have the infrastructure and no more houses. But that's my political rant over there. Councillor Bales.
Thank you, and quite timely you've come to me, Chair. Just go back on Councillor Creswell's comment about outside schools and what Councillor Cross has been making. If we scrutinised the speed limit policy at the last meeting, within that is a very good point about having 20-mile-an-hour zones outside schools, which we've got in there. And I've now applied for 2 of those outside schools in my area, and I think, bearing in mind what Councillor Creswell said, I'd love his support for my applications to put in 20-mile-an-hour zones. So Thank you for that, and that's quite timely. But anyway, on to my questions, Chair. And it's one really for Councillor Price on this. Just going on to page 18 and 19, I notice we've got staff turnover rates are, whilst they're at 10%, look as if they're not going to change over the coming year, for the end of the year at 10%, which looks good. And then we go to the next one, which is agency staff as a percentage of total pay bill, and we've got 6% in there, and that seems to be rising. So not quite sure why that's happening, but the two are interlinked. But is there any linkage here between those two and consultants we employ to use to fill staff vacancies? So in other words, not agency staff, but actually consultants. And I know that happens within the highways department. So it's just something on for Councillor Price, Chair. Is on the two linkages, have we got an efficiency savings there? And have we also got a linkage to consultants used, and what's the potential for efficiency savings there? Because if we're using more consultants to fill in that, we're obviously in an area where we should be looking at that. So just a thought on that. And then finally, Chair, on my big beef, as you know I'm going to mention, about libraries and libraries unlocked.
Can we go to Councillor Price for the efficiency, and then we are ready for
Thank
round
you.
3 of libraries?
I think in terms of the efficiency, I'll respond to you in writing on that one, just to get you a firm answer. But I think from my understanding, is that the agency increased spend is because of key frontline areas have grown in demand. But be rest assured, our focus is reducing reliance on agency and focusing on the transformation programme. But back to your original point, I'll get you a full answer in writing. Yeah.
Just clear. There are potential efficiency. Well, I'd like to think there are. Anyway, thank you for that, Nick, and I look forward to that. Just on to my final point, if I may, my beef about the libraries unlocked. At the last, I'm sure it was this scrutiny meeting, we mentioned about libraries and the fact that Old Church Library was not going to now be unlocked within the system because it's in a PFI, and the staff there were under consultation about having their contracts changed. I asked if we could have, if the Old Church staff could be informed of what's going on, because my perception was that they had no news on that. I was reassured that they would be talked to about the consultation programme that's going forward. Can I have some confirmation from somebody that that has taken place and then that no longer under consultation, and it's been taken in face rather than emails? Because I'm quite concerned that the staff there are getting emails to tell them something about which is the future of their jobs. So on that, and also we did mention something about the officers coming out to Bromsgrove District Council about libraries unlocked to update us what's going on, because I think some of our areas, and I'm sure Councillor May will have something to say on it, about we still have problems with libraries unlocked at certain areas. So if we could have some confirmation of the consultation for our libraries unlocked for Old Church, and something about coming out to talk to Bromsgrove District Council on what's been going on, because it's 2.5 years since we had the last update. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Cresswell, perhaps that's one for you to take away. I don't expect you to know, but I will say, as this is the third scrutiny this issue's come up at, and we're no further forward, perhaps a firm email and request for an update, I think, is the courtesy to Councillor Bales. Councillor May, we are over to you.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. So I'd like to start off, please, because we've just heard from my colleague to my left about our retention rate, and our staff turnover rate is green. I'm a little bit concerned when I read human resources and then the employee's actual full-time equivalent is amber. There seems a contradiction within that to me. Now, I know we've got a current activity, the senior leadership team have a recruitment panel, not come across this before, but I'd be very interested to see what their remit is. Frontline services, I would imagine, are upper and foremost and dealing with the vulnerable. But what's their programme of work and what's their overriding strategic approach to this, is my first question. Would you like to take that first, or would you like me to continue, Chairman?
Yes, I'm just thinking who's best. We'll try Dave first and then maybe Councillor Cresswell. Or I think Steph is waving at me. And over to you, Steph.
Thank you. This is the review of all posts that are due to be filled either by an agency member of staff, extension of a fixed term contract, or indeed recruitment to vacant posts, either because a person has left or whether there's a new service or a new need for an additional post. So each week SLT meets, as it always meets every week, and an item on the agenda as a standing item is review of recruitment. And what we do is we have a list of all said posts. Each has to have a business case as to why we need to recruit for it, the risks and issues, should we not recruit, etc. And each one of those is reviewed by the leadership teams, presented by the head of HR, and then there's a conversation, shall we say, as to whether those posts should be recruited to or not. Obviously, those that are filling statutory posts, particularly those on the front line relating to adults and children's, there's not a massive debate about those because obviously they're statutory and there's a need for them. They're still on the list, so the leadership team has an awareness of the issues relating to recruitment, but they don't have a lot of debate associated with them. And there is challenge, I have to say. I took a post within finance last week and there was challenge. It was a post relating to collection of debt. And we've now agreed, due to the potential implications of LGR and whether there's one or two local authorities in unitary, there may be a review of those sorts of positions in the future. So we've agreed to recruit on a fixed term basis. So there is challenge in those panels. I have to say, Adam and Mark, whatever posts come up in their areas, they are still challenged. Whether they need to be permanent, fixed term or agency, particularly those in the admin area. And coming back to the conversation earlier on about AI, one of the posts has only been agreed on a temporary basis, subject to the implementation of the transformation plan. Hope that gives you the full
Yeah, it
answer.
does. Thank you very much for that, Steph, and thank you to Dave for taking us through the report as well. I do appreciate it. I suppose my question is, why is it amber and not red when the numbers have remained consistent from 2024 to 25? It's probably not a question for you, it's probably a question for the politicians in the room. But if there's a move to reduce the number of full-time equivalents within the business, and it's been static now for over 12 months, what's the forward trajectory to address this, and what's our strategic plan linked to our strategic purposes to get the right outcomes, please? Sorry.
So before, I'm going to give Councillor Price an opportunity to think about the answer there, and apologies, but Dave caught my eye with a little wave. So we'll go to Dave perhaps with why it's presenting amber, and I think Councillor Price after that.
It's a very good challenge, Councillor, and it's one of the things actually that with the group of HR indicators here and some of the others they've got at different levels, you have different levels of reporting in a system. For the corporate performance and risk management system, we're reviewing with the teams all of the targets, the thresholds which will trip something to going for amber and red and green and so on. And there's always been a bit of a problem there, I think, with this indicator going way back about, is it one of, if it wouldn't be an indicator if it didn't have a target, but it then comes to whether there should be a specific target. If there weren't a target, it would become a measure. We could still include it in here, but it wouldn't then be RAG assessed. But what we're doing in the performance services team as part of the review system is to go back to the team and the HR, Jules and Helen. It's great. We've got really good engagement on them about what they want their thresholds to be and understanding what we need from in respect of targets. And it will address that. I think, because you're right to challenge it, Councillor, but it's something that they're aware of, but we'll pick that up as part of the end of financial year review process, which is built in for all of the reviews of all the indicators.
Fantastic. Councillor Price.
I don't have the exact information to hand, but I'm happy to respond in writing if Councillor May's okay with that?
I'm fine with that, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I have said consistently, and you probably think that, you know, why does she keep asking? This is why it's important to have a corporate plan with strategic purposes, because to be having discussions as an SLT group regarding the employment and the recruitment, you've got to have strategic purposes in place and a plan to get there. So, yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Can I move on to sickness rates?
I couldn't stop you, could I, Councillor May? It's over to you.
Many have tried. Thank you. Sickness rates. And I know this is a really big challenge, and I get all of this. But the point is, it seems to be stuck on red. And there might be some real extreme cases in here, and there, for the grace of God, we want everybody to have really good health and to be at work and be productive. But we don't seem to have moved on this since 2024 either. Now, we have got this as a red marker, but what actions are we taking? I read that we're physiotherapy service for all employees who have been absent from work with a musculoskeletal reason. But 3 sessions of physio to support an update is nothing. 3 lots of physiotherapy, potentially over a 3-week period or a 6-week period, I wouldn't anticipate anybody with a musculoskeletal issue. And I'm not a medical profession, but I've got a sister as a senior consultant in physiotherapy. Is it enough? And would it be a better investment of money to look at a longer term programme of works to address this? And I'm not touting for business, but I'm just questioning here how we get people back into the workforce. And also the fact it's still stuck on red. And you know, I know this is a difficult one, but where in the system are we with these red? Is it a few people who have been long-term sick over a long period of time, or is it people consistently having to go off sick because of musculoskeletal or mental health issues? And what are we doing to address it? And I know none of you here will probably be able to answer this, but I do think we need to look at this and PDQ.
Dave, perhaps for future reporting, we could identify anyone who is on a long period of absence and remove them from the data, just because I think Councillor May makes this point quite robustly time after time, but actually that is skewing data. If we've got someone who's genuinely unwell for a long period of time, bringing all the data down perhaps, is that something that could happen?
I think if I might help, you need to do it under confidential papers, because we wouldn't want to highlight specific cases that could be identified by those individuals. That's not what I'm about. I'm trying to extrapolate the figures that are relevant here. We're always going to be stuck on red else. Thank you.
Yes, getting that balance right, I think it probably would be able to look at the figures, and at least, however general it would have to be to avoid particular cases, even however anonymised they were being identified. Yes, I think we can certainly explore that with the team. And actually, Chair, I'm just having a message typed through from Hannah. She's actually saying about there's a Thriving Minds programme that's soon to be launched, and reviewing our employee assistance programme to keep people in work. So that's a bit of feedback from Hannah.
Fab, and thank you, Hannah, for joining us in the internet. Councillor May?
Yeah, is that imminently, please, Dave? The introduction. Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. So we'll look forward for the progress on that and the improvement in outcomes. Can I just raise one more thing about museum visits? I am really disappointed to see the county museum figures drop by 25%. Year on year, 24-25. I suppose it's not for now, but it would be good when Hannah's available to talk about the programme of work, because for that to have dropped so substantially, I am concerned. Thank you.
Councillor Cresswell, perhaps, do you have any insight into what's going on with our museums?
Yes, I have worked extremely hard to keep the county museum there at Hartlebury over the last 6 months. There is outstanding problems with asbestos on a roof on there, which limits the amount of access that people got. I'm just suggesting, and I cannot 100% say this, but that could be part of it. That we have not got a full complementary or complement of exhibits at the moment. That is something that we are looking at, you know, but there's going to be a substantial cost to do that.
Fab. Before I go over to Councillor Turner, I think it might be worth, as members, I think that quite a lot of us are new and the County Museum isn't something that we've necessarily been inducted or introduced to. I don't know if we can work with colleagues there to perhaps have a time that as many members as possible could go and attend and actually get an overview of what we do. I'm not really aware of it other than this panel. I don't know if that's something you can coordinate maybe with colleagues and see if we can have a bit of a member away day. Probably not a whole day. Councillor Turner.
Yeah, a couple of points. The first one being, I wasn't really going to mention it here, but Councillor Bales has already mentioned it about speeding around schools and so on, and it ties in with bikeability and so on. I've already raised on the portal, in consultation with some of the residents in my area in Rubery, around Waisley Hill High School and Holywell School. You could potentially come straight off the A38 at 70 miles an hour and straight into a side road. And I've already raised on the portal a suggestion of reducing all these speeds down to 20 miles an hour, particularly when they immediately run straight into the schools around Wetty Road and Leach Heath Lane, which seems to be a cut through to the A38, again going past schools. But it seems to go into the black hole of the portal and nothing never seems to get done, which is a frustration. That's, I don't know if it's a question or just a general complaint, really. But it's frustrating on behalf of the residents. They feel as if I'm raising these concerns and nothing's getting done about it. That's the first point.
I think you have given us a glimpse into a future panel where we are raising the member portal, though I'm sure Councillor Price has heard perhaps it's not always effective. He's pointing at me. I was going to give him a 2-month wait there, but go on.
Just to remind Councillor Turner, we are having a change of highways liaison officer, so that there will be delays as well because it relies on the human side of things as well. And, Mr. Dallison is covering 2 areas at the moment as well and training a new member of staff. So we have to give him a bit of time. But I am with them tomorrow, so I can raise it for you tomorrow verbally as well to see if they can come back to you ASAP.
Can you raise mine too as well?
You can do if you want. You've got 20 seconds.
Fine. I think Councillor Bennett wants to quickly snip in about this one, although it's not naturally this panel, and then I'll come back to Councillor Turner. But if we could make a brief comment, Councillor Bennett.
Yes, it's just on that matter, because it's a general issue across the entire council. Because I think most schools should be 20 miles an hour. If we're going to have a general policy, it's cheaper to enforce it right the way across an entire area rather than on an individual ad hoc basis. I mean, it could be something that could be put to everybody. That's all I was going to suggest.
I sense a motion for full council coming.
Maybe, yes.
I look forward to it in May.
Right, yeah.
Councillor Turner, if you'd like to carry on.
Yeah, Councillor May's already mentioned about the reduction in museum visits, which is disappointing, and also with libraries and so on. It's a bit of a yardstick, as we mentioned in our pre-meeting, that if libraries is not just about books, it's about so much else. We've already spoke about e-books, audio books and so on, and the social area that it provides to many, many residents in their area. But I hadn't seen anything to do with art space or galleries mentioned within this report. And I think this is another area that libraries and museums could expand their area to encompass these areas within art galleries, because I think it's a subject that never gets mentioned, which I think is very, very important.
David, are art galleries captured within this, or is that something we don't report?
The gallery and display spaces in libraries, and for example at the Hive, most prominently of course when you first go in, all of the libraries have an events monitoring form which they complete monthly, and some of it where it's a drop-in event they have to make a good estimate, sometimes I guess you might say, about the number of people that visit, but we'll have the information around that, and there's say, various gallery spaces that we've got in some of the larger libraries in particular, that's available for use. And we'd monitor the number of exhibitions that there are. And as part of the Libraries Unlocked events monitoring as well, we look at how many different events are booked there as well. So there's the usage of the spaces as well for groups, community groups that are involved. But in terms of how we might be able to report, yes, we could look at, with exhibitions, how many there have been staged. It would be difficult to judge probably how many people have actually viewed them, but then we start to get an idea about, from customer voice surveys, about, we always ask, what was the main purpose, or what were the main purposes of your visit to the library today, and we can get information from that about how many said, well, one of the things we wanted to do was to view the exhibition that's here, or there was a particular event that we wanted to attend. So yes, we do have plenty of events monitoring information to hand, and that would include what we've got around the takeover of the gallery offer.
Councillor Turner, does that help?
Well, it's just making better use of these public spaces, isn't it? Rather than seeing a slow decline in all the usage, what other ideas can we come up with? It's not just about art spaces, but it could be about crafting sessions and so on for young children. All sorts of things could be going on, and which would all encourage people to be using these spaces, so that you can justify the expense that they're incurred by the actual residents of Worcestershire.
Councillor Cresswell, I think you want to come back on that point.
Yeah, just for information, I attended a poetry competition yesterday, the Young Poet Laureate at the Hive in Worcestershire. So these things do go on in the background, and it's only like over the last 6 months that I've started to actually get into this. It was a fantastic day. You know, the children absolutely loved it. There was the poetry was exceptional, and so these things are happening. We just, you know, it's about expanding our vision into it to see exactly what's going on.
Fantastic. Yep, Councillor Turner, and then Councillor Bennett, I've got you.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Cresswell. It's just that you do hear the Hive mentioned quite a lot, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a fantastic space. But for the councillors on the peripheries of the Worcestershire, which my division is, the Hive is an extremely, it's a 56-mile round trip. So that is not really applicable for us necessarily, but the libraries in our immediate area are of more concern and how we can make better use of those.
Yeah, Councillor Cresswell.
Yeah, a very valid point you say there. And I live in Starport, and the library in Starport is very small. You know, and I've been speaking with local councillors there about maybe some sort of like museum exhibition. But once again, it's limited space. But what you say is perfectly valid, and I'm interested in exploring that as much as we humanly can.
Fab. Only because Councillor Bennett has been waving at me madly, Councillor Mayor. I'm just going to go to him and then to yourself. Yeah, Councillor
Madly? Brilliant. I just, at the pre-meeting, I brought this up, that these libraries and or any other major building that could be a library are going to be the hubs of the future. Once the district councils have gone, you know, we need to have a real list of things that we can try and fit into them so that the public really, because they're going to be the only places where you can actually get close to a council, I think. And it would be a good idea, I think, to have a full day of sitting down and just coming up with creative ideas about that at some point. I certainly would take part in that, because I think the future for music, for art, for all kinds of crafts and stuff like that could be highlighted in some of these places where we have specialist industries that need boost, let alone all of the services that are going to be produced by the unitaries in the future. And if we have a plan about that now, we can then laugh at places like Herefordshire that didn't do it when they should have. Yeah?
Fab. I was terrified my employer was in the back of my head there saying you're not quite going to do a day yet, but I'm sure Councillor Cresswell probably has a schedule of what we're going to do going forward and how we can engage the arts, and I'm sure Councillor Bennett, he'd link in with you when that comes up. Councillor May, you may be the final point on this
Okay,
one.
thank you very much. We do a lot of asset-based community development work with the support of Public Health, who invest around £1 million into our libraries. And this has been built on around the preventative agenda to prevent people coming into the adult social care sphere and the children's social care sphere. In the library in Hagley, we have, as I said, we have wonderful events, knit and natter, we have outreach work from Citizens Advice, we have Lego on a Saturday afternoon, we have art and classes throughout half term and school holidays. It's a whole piece of work that's been introduced and has had £2,000 of my divisional fund every year since the year I got elected, which was in 2017. So we have a programme of work, and this is the approach that myself and the gentleman over here on the back row took back in 2021, I think it was actually. The library we invested in from 2017, but it was based on the Wigan deal and that asset-based community development and what you can do from a library. So what I would do is do an assessment of what's currently happening in your library, because we don't want to duplicate work and duplicate capacity. Do the assessment and look at what's there already on offer. Because I do know the public health team are very, very good at giving seed funding out to enable this to happen. And it has had real positive outcomes, particularly around the prevention of social isolation. So I've just got to give that shout out because I do know a lot of work's happening in this sphere. Thank you. And thanks to Dave and thanks to Steph.
Councillor Criswell, any comment on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor May. You know, I've been speaking with Hannah Parrott, you know, over months now about trying to expand the network of libraries. I mean, you know that we kept all the libraries, we kept those in the budget this year. I'm passionate about them. They're a hive, you know, a centrepiece of many communities, and they double up as more than just a library as well, especially like Tenbury Wells, perhaps, you know, where things go on, you know, in addition. So, you know, anything that we can use to bring in any kind of investment or multi-use, it can only be a good thing for the people of Worcestershire.
Fantastic, thank you. I believe we're going to move on to finance. I'll very swiftly go to Sam.
Cheers. Just about the staff survey, on page 15, the last one, it looks like it was done in June 24. Is that the wrong graph for the information? Because the rag is green, but I don't see how it can be green if the last one was done 2 years ago.
Was more around the RAG setting about the response rate, but even that I think we'd need to review that, and that's part of what we want to do is for looking at the targets around any of those HR indicators. So I think the target from memory was predicated on what the percentage was of a staff that responded and whether it was higher or lower than the previous one. But I will check that just to make absolutely sure, Count. And Chairman, I just pick up on a couple of things. It was only one further response back from Hannah, courtesy of one of Councillor May's points. So it is going back. Apologies for going back slightly, but yes, there's the reviewing of the managing attendance policy, and that will be taken account into the future reporting, and we can give more detailed updates, of course, on that in the future. So that was just one little point there. And my point is, well, Joe, I've just gone through and checked on the county museum visits, and yes, although the figures are down, I can give a figure up to the end of February. So at the end of February, the county museum's figures for the current financial year, 18,140. That's down 1,443, 7.4%, compared with April to February of 24/5, when it was 19,583. So there was something in the way I've set out one of the tables or the graphs that makes it seem that it's a much larger drop. Then apologies to Councillor May for that, and I can address that. But as I say, end of February, financial year figure, 7.4% down. I said I think I would say if we get to about 20,000, I think that'll be about the level, and it was 21,069 for the financial year 4/5.
Fab. Hannah perfectly demonstrating how a co-pilot would work there, so it's a great one. Before we move on to finance, just checking, because Councillor Hardman's in the if he had anything to comment on the monitoring. Nope, fantastic. So I will thank Dave once again for a really robust and great report there. Thank you. Steph, in the interest of time, and I know if we could focus on the finance only pertaining to this panel, I'm very aware that we could open a can of worms with the general finance, and none of us want to talk about that again. So just this panel would be great. Thank you.
Indeed, I shall try and avoid worms. So I'm going to pick up, as per the Chair's request, anything to do with this particular panel. So I'm busy flicking through my slides so I can remember where I am.
Slide
so we're
11.
picking up on page 39 if you're looking at it on the printed version, 43 if you're looking at it on the screen, and it's slide number 11. So it's from that point onwards. So a very positive position for all areas within the remit of this panel for the end of period 9, which is the third quarter of the financial year to the end of December. All areas within the central services area, bar one, are underspending, and some of those areas are actually improving their underspend position. So overall, we're expecting just over £1 million underspend. Majority of areas are underspending due to holding vacant posts, and I've articulated earlier on the challenge that all senior managers are getting on recruitment. And some of the posts are being recruited to, I have to say, that which is a positive for service delivery, but some of them won't be delivered in full by the end of this financial year, so we do have a saving. Corporate areas, those are what we can call below the line, so not directly operational service delivery. So these are things relating to the overall operation of the council, which includes its debt borrowing and repayments. Those areas, again, are underspending for the end of quarter 3. The key headlines there continues to be underspends on the borrowing budget relating to delays in implementation of some of the schemes within the capital programme, and the benefit the local authority has from interest rates on its loans. And then last but by no means least, community services, again, all the areas broadly break even or indeed underspending. And as quoted at the last meeting when I reported on this position, we are benefiting from a reduction in our rates bills at the Hive thanks to the successful challenge of the rateable value by our partners at the University of Worcester. So that shows great partnership working with us and our partners in that respect. So quite an easy run through, no major areas of risk at the moment relating to the areas under your panel, Councillor James, but as always, happy to take questions and comments as you may see fit.
Fab, thank you for that whistle-stop tour to prove once again we are the best scrutiny panel of saving. Just before we pop to members, Councillor Price, is there anything you want to comment on with the underspend? I assume you're happy. I'd like to hope you are, but...
I'm very happy, and I think Steph's articulated it in a great way, so thank you, Steph.
Councillor May.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Steph, for taking us through this. I'm really pleased to see that the successful rateable value revaluation, how many years are they going back, please?
From my knowledge, it was 6.
Excellent news, thank you.
That's Councillor Hartman.
I battled to get this done, that's why I'm just raising it now.
The issue I want to raise, having once bought one of these and thought that the valuation office and indeed the district council are extremely unfair to me, are they going to give you compound interest on the debt?
Steph.
On the the district council has given us interest on the amount outstanding, yes.
Thank goodness that wasn't on mic there, Councillor Hardman said that somebody did better than you could. I don't know how the internet would cope. Any other colleagues there? I suppose one thing that we've often said in pre-meets that concerns us is we are underspending currently on a vacancy hold, but when LGR is announced, you will inevitably get transition to perhaps a bit more of a stable option in other local authorities that aren't going through this change. Are we ready for that impact, potentially, that we won't be underspending? We may have to recruit. We may not function with lower numbers than we have now.
That's a really good point, and I think what my head is telling me is that we will have a completely separate budget by then. So if you think about the 6 councils, including the 7 councils, including the 6 districts, whether we're in 1 or 2 local authorities, they've all got their own budgets anyway. So when you merge them all together, the budget's there. So if they've got staff, we've got underspends, put it all together, the whole should still have an underspend, shouldn't it? However, what we will have is a completely new entity, entities, including 2 or 1 new sovereign body with a new budget. So we will have to redesign the council or the councils of the future. So it's, in my head, not comparable with the now, because we will be in a completely different operating model or models.
Fab. I suppose just a comment to the Cabinet member before I come to Councillor, is we're all people, we all know how this could work. There are 7, for example, monitoring officers in Worcestershire. There will potentially only be scope for 1. Are we making sure that we are retaining ours, who, in case she's listening, I think is the best monitoring officer we've ever had, end of, but we don't want them leaving beforehand if there's other opportunities. So what's the contingent there to make sure we are as strong as we can be right up to that final day of Worcestershire County? Preferably Councillor Price, but...
No, exactly. Yeah. It's look, it's a difficult question anyway. I think with LGR, there's a lot of unknowns at this stage. You know, we don't know which model we're going to get at the moment, which is 1 or 2. You know, so it is I'd like to call it a moving target, and it definitely is a moving target at the moment. But look, it's one I'll take away, and we can come back to you with an answer in writing. Yeah. Fantastic.
Councillor Bennett.
I was just concerned about the period of transition and the costs that will be duplicated or triplicated, depending on how you look at it, because district councils are still going to be there, county councils are still going to be there, and there's going to be a shadow authority which is going to be operating at the same time as all of those. Who's going to pay for all of the different costs associated with that?
Don't worry, Councillor, I'm not coming to you. Steph, we heard money.
Oh, if it's a pound sign, it's got to be my question. There are the shadow period and the transition period will probably be around a year. So there will be a year in which, as you rightly say, the 7 councils will operate. However, it's not like there's a whole new council. There's obviously going to be people who are responsible for working on the development of what the council or councils will look like in the future. So there are likely to be people who will have additional duties or additional roles or the requirement for backfill. Absolutely, there will be additional costs associated with that. At the moment, we're working with all the, so Phil, my boss, the CFO, is chairing the Chief Finance Officers group across the other sovereign bodies. And we're looking at what would that look like, what would need to happen, who needs to be involved in that from a finance, project management, legal services, etc., to try and bring together what does the new sovereign body or bodies look like. Then there will be the operation of getting us there. So yes, we are working on that. Yes, there'll be additional costs. We are looking at what the value and the quantum of that is at the moment, and whether it's highly likely there'll be some sharing of that across the county council and the district councils. But how much that's going to be, I can't comment at the moment because we're still on the first few steps of that journey. The government have already indicated that there is some funding nationally to come to local authorities. How that's going to be shared out and to whom, we will obviously need to wait until the decision's made on how many councils are moving into 1 or 2 or 3 even unitary councils going forward. So it'll depend on, they've got a quantum of cash. How many they're going to need to share it out into will obviously depend on how much Worcestershire will get. But absolutely we know there's going to be additional costs.
Yeah, I thought the public eventually will have to know about the consequences of some of this, because at the moment it's all been shrouded in mystery. But the government having to put money aside, that'll be interesting, won't it? Let's see how much that is.
Councillor May.
Thank you very much. So Steph, thank you for taking us through that. Have we got a risk and resilience line in the budget? Because at the district, in view of the 8.98% council tax increase, we've put £2.5 million in, because we do feel with the increase in business rates, the increase in the council tax, we carry the biggest risk now of the funding not being in place, and that will roll forward. So my question is, if we've got a risk and resilience fund within the budget, how much is it, please, at Worcestershire County Council?
Yes, we have. We call it the contingency budget, and if you give me 30 seconds, I'll find it and
Thank
let
you,
you
Steph.
know.
The timer has begun there, Steph. It's a bit like countdown, isn't it? Fab, are there any other questions whilst Steph is beavering away for the answer there? I'm sure we won't want to fill silence with another monologue. Yes. Blinking, well done, Sam. Thank you. Wonderful. You couldn't be replaced by AI there. While Steph is doing that, we're going to shift to our next point on the agenda, which is the work programme. Oh, God. Is there any contribution? Councillor May.
Yes, thank you so much. You really regret me asking this, but the portal, the members' portal, can we please have a root and branch revision of this? Because I agree with Councillor Turner. My stuff's going down a black hole and I've got about 62 outstanding issues. Thank you.
Councillor Bennett, is this...
Can I just also add to that? I've done all my expense claims for various bits and pieces, just a bit of mileage, and suddenly it just disappeared completely.
Okay, fab. Steph, I'll come to you in a moment. What I would say to members, and perhaps we'll go to Steph and you can ponder on this whilst, is the next item on our work programme is our voluntary sector. However, I'm very aware that this is quite a pressing issue, and is maybe I would contemplate an additional meeting sooner than our one in 2 months' time to actually get this, because it has been on the agenda for quite a while. If things are being missed, and I think public perception then of councillors not doing anything is ill thought through, and it affects all members. So perhaps we can think, if people are happy with that, then we might have to look at an additional meeting that Sam will no doubt shout at me for suggesting. Steph, over to you.
Thank you. It's 12.176 million.
Thank you very much indeed. Do you think that's enough? Bear in mind that one district council alone has put £2.5 million in, and an additional £500,000 this year and £500,000 next year. So it's taken us up to £3.5 million of provision.
This is an annual figure, so it's in every year. So that'll be for 26, 27, and then 27, 28. And 29. So in the next 3 years, you're talking 36 million.
Okay, and that's what we've done historically, isn't it? But that's been carried out, and we've used that, haven't we, in previous years?
25-26 was the first year we set up a contingency. We've not had this in. So what we've had in previous years is elements of reserves. So we've had a risk reserve where it's use it, and once you've used it, it's gone. You either replenish it or it's gone, like your savings account. What we did for 25-26 was built in an annual revenue budget contingency, and that's continued in this in 26-27 financial year. We haven't had a corporate contingency, I don't think, for about 8-9 years, and certainly not to that value, to my recollection. It's certainly been 8 or 9 years since we've had a revenue recurring corporate contingency, and I think at that level it was 1-3 million. It certainly wasn't to the quantum of this revenue budget.
Thank you. May I just ask a supplementary on that? So what volume, can you give me a figure in terms of capital receipts that we've actually had come in as well? I know you probably haven't got it to hand now, but the capital receipts can be used for transformation, and I'd just like to do an overlook at what we're doing in terms of capital receipts vis-a-vis transformation. Thank you very much.
We're budgeting for 15 million capital and receipts this financial year. Some of which were earmarked towards the new Worcestershire Secondary School. However, the decision of the Chief Finance Officer at the moment is any capital receipts that are received are set against the exceptional financial support to avoid borrowing.
Thank you. Okay. Will you? Thank you very much. And if we could have last year's as well, please. I'd be most grateful. Thank you, Steph.
Fantastic. Was there any other comments on the budget before? No? Fab. Sam and I have worked our wonders, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to retain our next meet as programmed, but we're going to ask for lines of inquiry in advance to present to officers to get an answer to some of the blips that we're experiencing in the member portal. Just because I think timing-wise, we probably wouldn't get an accurate session. Councillor May, you...
Well, I think we've got a problem there, because it's not just the people sat in this room. I know that of at least 3 Bromsgrove members that have said to me, I've got a problem with the portal. So I do think we need to open this up, if you don't mind me saying. The volunteering... But I think to come forward, we need the people in the room to have some answers. It's getting harder and harder to get anything done. And, you know, I've just sat here now and reopened cases that are being shut down.
Hello, Councillor Price, then Councillor
Could I just jump in on that? Is it the actual portal itself, or is it the officers? Because we need to distinguish between the two, I think.
It's the portal, and it's the understanding of the time constraints on it, understanding what the gully programme is, for example, how quickly they can be emptied and cleared up. And it also needs to be worked together with the district plan for sweeping.
Yeah, in my experience, I think it's the officers give you a response, and then it's still not closed down in mine, but I still go back with a clarification of that, and mine are all kept open. I haven't seen any being done, so I think we've got a joint issue here.
Well,
with both. Yeah, go on,
if I
sorry.
can just add to this, that the Bromsgrove District Council sweeping team can't even get an answer to what we're doing in terms of the gullies. It needs a joined-up approach, because they're saying to me, we can't sweep if we can't get a programme out. So I do think we need a real joined-up approach to this, because everybody will benefit, then it'll be saving in costs.
I'm going to go to Councillor Bastow now.
I think that as we are here for residents, and the members portal is obviously very important, and if you really, really do want to do the Worcestershire volunteers, put a time limit on it, because I personally think members portal and not getting stuff done is more important than the volunteers.
Fab. Councillor Bales.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we're on the agenda item for coming forward. Yeah, just on that, I thought we discussed that we need something on LGR coming forward on our work programme. I think 1st of June is far too late, to be honest. That's 3 months away. We will be then 10 months into coming forward, and then, you know, we've still got a lot of work to be doing. So is there any way we can get that LGR forward within the work programme, so we as members here aren't just looking at a blank wall, we're actually understanding what we're going down, because I can't give any answers to my residents what's going on because I don't know.
Certainly, I think the challenge we have, and it's the collective we, so perhaps I'm talking for Sam now, but he doesn't know it, but we pretend. Until we know what the government are going to do, we could spend an awful lot of time talking about the next step. And I totally agree that residents are really apprehensive about what's to come. I think we are as members as well. There is a central government that has forced this upon us. None of us in this room, I believe, asked for LGR, and I don't think if we had a choice, we'd want LGR. But I don't want us giving a false impression to our residents that we meet, talk about an option, and the Labour government turn around and say, it's the complete opposite. I think we have to have really focused conversations. I am, however, keen that LGR, as much as possible, comes to this panel, that it looks at the actual structure of our council, that we're looking after our staff and our colleagues and the infrastructure, and we are in the best position for day one after the new authority. But I'm just very aware that realistically we need to get the member portal sorted so that then we can go into LGR and say this is the portal of envy that people will want to use, and we have an ability to control the narrative or push forward with what we can utilise. I hear you. I'm very aware that as soon as we get the announcement, I think this panel will be really interested to go forward. But until we get that announcement, I wouldn't want to waste your time, the Cabinet member or officers' time, to talk about hypotheticals, because we could do that all the time, I would argue.
Sorry, Chair, just clear in my mind, there's a lot we can be doing before that decision. We've already seen some of the statistics on staff and how they're behaving. What are we doing? It doesn't matter whether we go to 1 or 2 unitaries. There's a lot of things we can be doing in advance, and I think that that's something which will be coming forward, because I think we can be doing a lot more than just sitting here waiting for the government to make a decision, if indeed they do make a decision, and we're likely to get way beyond the summer. So, we're going to be in a position, the way the council works in getting meetings in, we're going to be months and months behind. We're just behind the curveball here, and there's a lot we can be doing. We've talked about AI today, and I'm sure there's a lot of things we can be getting into here, which we can be getting ourselves in advance and not just wait for it to be happening. And that's, unfortunately, what happens in local government. And in private industry, we'd be looking at this and we'd be saying, what can we do? Where are our ducks? How are they all lined up? And so we can then go with the one that's going forward. So I think there is possibly something we can do, Chair, and I'd just like us to think about that a bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. I think one thing I will say, and it's something that I'm more than happy to take away with today, is obviously our portfolio holder for LGR also happens to be the leader of the authority. I think, I'm sure, I'm very confident that the leader has a list of things that are going to be BAU, irrelevant of what we are, and then stuff that's non-BAU. And I'm happy if we get a copy of that list of what we think our core responsibility would be irrelevant. I'm sure we can bring that to a panel and look at what we can do, because you are right, there will be stuff, but we have to remember that we won't be in the driver's seat, that it will be the new authority that is making the call. We, us members, I hope we're all returned to the shadow authority, but we don't know. We don't know what will happen, and we could say a direction and the new authority could say that's not the way we want to go. I want to make sure residents don't have false hope, but I'm certainly happy to write to the leader and ask what's happening. What I would just ask the committee is, on the terms of the member portal, are we happy for it to come to the next meeting in 2 months' time, or is there a really strong appetite for it to come sooner? I'm happy to work with colleagues to my left to try and get an additional meet in place. I can't promise anything, but I just wanted to check with committee members what they would want to do. So if I could just sort of have an indication, a wave or whatever, if we'd rather it sooner. Yep, Andrew, Peter, Alan, Karen, Mark. We will therefore...
Are we bringing it forward, or is it an additional?
Well,
so
it'd be an additional.
So if there were 10, there'd now be 11?
Yeah. Okay. So we are going to therefore take an action to place an additional corporate and communities meeting with the focus on the member portal to open up to all colleagues and all councillors, and we will try and find a time that suits. Maybe, I don't know if we can do it later in the day, so anyone with work commitments could come along of that time. But if people are happy with that, I will close the meeting on that one. Fantastic. Thank you, folks. Great conversation. Have a great rest of your day.